So, hey guys, and welcome to the ZJC Drums webinar. I'm so glad you're joining me. We're going to be digging into the beginnings of learning drums, and it really starts with stick control. So, I don't get to play drums as much as I used to. This used to be one of my main instruments, but I remember the process of learning drums really well. And I remember what helped me go from just a new beginner taking drum lessons to being able to play on the team. And now, even at the point where if I had to, I've actually led worship from the drums. Not that that's my first choice, but it's really fun to be able to do that. So, a couple of housekeeping things. So the beauty of this session is that it is really simple. So if you're starting out as a drummer, you want to learn drums, you don't know where to start, this is the session for you. All you need for this are a pair of drumsticks and something to hit. I mean, it can be as simple as if you have a firm pillow. I've got a drum pad here. If you have a drum kit, awesome, that's great. I have one, but I chose to use this drum pad as kind of a simpler way of explaining it, so you can it can be more approachable for you. So there will be a PDF of the slides from this presentation that you'll be able to get if you look down below on one of the buttons on the page, so you can follow along. You'll be able to do that. So also, as an FYI, this is pre-recorded, but there will be a replay available, and you're going to be able to join me on Zoom after this session for a brief Q&A at the end. I'd love to answer any of your questions and work with you on anything that's giving you trouble. That'd be really fun, and we'll be doing a giveaway there as well. If you come and if you just show up and hang out, we're going to be giving a ZJC drum course away there, so you'll definitely want to check that out. So I'm also live in the YouTube chat. So this is pre-recorded, but I am in the chat and I'm available to answer your questions as we go through this live. So without further ado, let's hop in here. So our goal is to be able to play one very simple beat by the end of this webinar. The beat that we'll learn is really typically what is usually the first beat that drummers learn. And you can start working on this even before you have a drum kit. And that's pretty cool. That's something that means that before a significant cost investment, I mean, sticks are relatively cheap, and you can start to learn before you invest a lot of money in it. So let's talk about the basic technique, how you start out holding the stick. So the first thing you want to do is you want to take your stick, and the most important piece of it is the thumb and your index finger. So what you want to do is you want to go usually about to here, maybe a third of the way down the stick, usually not right at the very end, kind of roughly about there. You want to create a point of contact with the stick between your thumb and your pointer finger. This is your fulcrum. Everything depends on the relationship between your thumb and your pointer finger. Your other three fingers are going to balance the stick. So you're going to use this. You ought to be able to hold the stick with just these two fingers and then use these three to keep things under control. That's the idea. Importantly, you don't want to clench your hand, so you don't want to like grip it really tight. You're going to fatigue yourself really quickly. That's not good for your hand. One thing you want to watch for when you're starting out is if you let this slide. So if you watch, if this slides down to where it's between, almost in the crevice between where your thumb and your index finger start, that is like fisting the stick. This is what you do not want to do. This gives you very little control over the stick. It's going to be very, very difficult. So you want this point and then balance. Don't let it slide to where it goes down like this. You see, so from here to here, you don't want to do that. That's definitely not going to help you in the long run. So watch for that. Try and nix bad habits if you're doing it. So a good way to practice stick control from the very beginning. You want to get to the point where this is not an obstacle for you. It just feels like an extension of your body. And that takes a while to get to. Drums has, I think, a harder learning curve than other instruments like acoustic guitar typically. And a lot of it comes from just the controlling the stick and the amount of coordination that has to happen between limbs. And the way that we break through that is starting simple and learning some basic techniques to help us work through that. So one of them, my drum teacher, Paul Richards, taught me this, and it was very, very helpful when I started out. So you hold the stick like this, and then you tap twice with each of your fingers and move between them. And what this does is it forces you to kind of practice holding the stick, but also controlling your fingers separately. And when you do this, I do this a lot before I play a set, and it just helps me feel connected to the drumstick and wakes my fingers up. So I'm actually less likely to drop a stick in the middle of a set if I do that. So you can do it with your other hand too. So if you want to do this, follow along with me. So hold the stick, pointer, index finger, and then hold it up like this, and then just tap with your middle finger twice, tap with your ring finger twice, tap with your pinky, back to your ring finger, then your middle finger, your ring finger, your pinky, and then you can speed that up. You can work on that on your own. But that's a nice little thing that I found very, very helpful with learning how to hold the stick properly. So when you're playing the kit, you want to sit up straight. You want to have good posture. I'm a sloucher when it comes to posture, and I'm constantly fighting it. You want everything to be relaxed. You're going to be playing a very physically demanding instrument, but you do want everything to be relaxed. If you have tension, especially in your forearms, long term, that's not a good thing. You want your elbows even or slightly above the drum. I have this a bit elevated for the camera shot. This is a little bit higher than, actually quite a bit higher than I normally would use, but typically I would probably have this maybe down about here, maybe a little bit lower. But you want your elbows not to be like below the edge here, and you don't want your elbows like flaring up high. It should look pretty natural, like about the right spot is if your elbows are, a 90-degree angle at rest, you're feeling comfortable, that's about the right spot for it. Your hands should hold the sticks horizontally, over, let's say you're playing a snare drum or a drum pad, you hold it horizontally over it at roughly a 45-degree angle to each other. Now, I've heard, some people will say 90 degrees, and like that would be kind of more like this over that. I don't think you have to be hard and fast about it. The longer I play, the more I kind of like about 45 degrees. So that's more kind of like this. The tips of the sticks should hover over the middle of the drum. So we typically don't rest our sticks on the drum pad. We let them hover just above it in ready position, ready to play. But we don't want to just let them sit on the drum because then we actually have to lift them up and then play. It's actually less efficient to do it that way. So one of the things that we're going to be watching for and how we think about the motion is efficiency makes it easier to play and it takes less energy to play. We want to be thinking about where our next step is going to happen and move in such a way that makes that easy. So the actual playing motion, so there's three parts to this. There's different elements, but what's cool is that drums actually at its core is very simple, and I'll explain what this means. So we want to start level. So we'll start with our stick height being horizontal just above the drum over the middle. And then all we're going to do to start with, and you can do this with me, just hover over it just barely. You want to drop the stick and then let the momentum of the rebound carry the stick back up. So you're using the energy that comes from taking it down and then letting that naturally send it back up. And then we're going to control that rebound and stop or reset the stick. So it's going to look something like, and what's happening is I'm dropping, then I'm letting that rebound pop it back up, but I'm trying to control it so that it stays here. And I'm just saying, like, I don't play as much drums as I used to, so that's my caveat of you'll see little stuff that could be a little bit cleaner, but generally speaking, it should look something like this. And with your right hand, this would be, look from your perspective, it looks like my left hand, probably, but this is my right hand. So that's one type of motion. The second type is that would be what we call an unaccented drum hit, what we just did. The second one would be more of an accent, and an accent means that we're playing it with more volume, with more emphasis, and the way that we do that is with stick height. And we'll get to that more in just a second. So what we're going to do now is the other extreme. Instead of going horizontal and dropping, now we're going to take the stick vertically up. So we're going to start level, our stick height hovering horizontally just above the drum. Then we're going to raise the stick vertically up until it is straight up and down. So 90-degree angle between the drum pad and the stick. And then we're going to drop the stick and let the momentum of the rebound carry the stick back up. So it's going to be... And you notice, because this is a little bit higher, I caught the edge here. So you just want to make sure you're coming down in the middle. And this is a lot more obvious what's going on if you think about it, because here the momentum coming from the stick, there's not a lot of energy going down, so there's not a lot of energy coming up. On this one, there's a lot of energy coming down because of the weight of the stick. So when I hit, it naturally pops back up. And so this is a good example of you're letting that momentum pop it back up. I should add too, when you're playing, you'll notice I'm trying to use wrists as opposed to arm. So as a general rule, and this is really good practice to start early, you want to learn to turn your wrist rather than, something like this. Because what's going to happen is it takes so much more energy, first of all, to move your arm like that rather than the wrist. And secondly, you're going to have way more control if you're using more wrist. When I started out playing drums, I used way too much arm. And as I get older and I've played more, I've moved more and more towards using wrist, and it's way better. So that's kind of the second type of playing motion. But there's another sort of hybrid version of this, which is where we play a vertical hit, but then we actually control the momentum of the rebound and we stop horizontally. So we're up here vertically, but then we come down and we stop horizontally. Now, why would we do this? Well, let's say we're playing a hit where we want to play an accent or a note with emphasis, and our next note is not going to be accented. It's going to be a quiet note. What we want to be able to do is to be able to control it. So start level, your stick height, hovering horizontally over the drum. Raise the stick vertically up until it's perfectly straight up and down. Then drop the stick. And see, you notice my rebound, that's too high. That's not how high I want to do it. So I'm going to try it again. It's a little bit better. You see, it wants to go up and I have to control it. So it's a little bit better. This is good. You can see, like, this is a great example of I'm practicing on my own. I'm really trying to fine tune my technique. What I'm looking for is essentially in slow motion to go down and to stop there. Yeah, that last one was a lot better. So one of the things that you can do early on that will really help you does not take, the cost investment of sticks and something to hit with, to a drum pad, or a pillow. You want to work on these types of techniques, and it feels monotonous, but the reality is when you work on this and you master it, you get it under your belt, it allows you to do so many other things to build on it. And that's eventually how you get to the point where you're playing around the kit and it feels very natural. It starts with stick control. So some good principles to follow with stick control. The first is that when you think about volume, how loud you play, dynamics is the musical term for it. one of the kind of rookie mistakes for drummers early on is to say, okay, if I want to be louder, I'm going to play with more force. And when I say that, I'm talking in almost a physics sense of it, where I'm putting more muscle into the hit. And this is a really bad way to get control, to play with control. Speaking as someone who has consistently, historically struggled with playing quiet as a drummer, and I've learned that I have to do that. I have to learn to play controlled. It's something that you realize the only way that you can control that is if the difference in your volume comes from stick height, not playing with more intensity. Because if you say, okay, my maximum volume is based on my stick height, as opposed to, okay, now I'm going to try and smack the drums like crazy, you're going to, first of all, it's going to expend more energy unnecessarily. And secondly, you're going to lose control. When in reality, all you have to do is you almost think about it as, okay, this is my loudest, and let's say I want to be kind of in between. Well, I set my stick height in between, and then that's my, maybe my medium, and my quiet is based on a stick height here. And so this is a much easier way to play. It allows you more control. It's very, very important that you learn this early. So you want to reset the motion of your stick every time. You want to use the momentum from the rebound of your previous stroke to reset the stick, and you want to be efficient with your energy. So stick height, reset your motion, use momentum, be efficient with your energy. These are all principles of stick control that can be really helpful, and especially if you learn them early on. A lot of people think that drums are harder to learn than they really are. And I don't want to make this sound like overly easy, because it's not. I mean, I would say it took me about 3 years of playing before I could even have a shot at playing through a worship song on even a youth band, and it still was not very good. The thing is, though, that people think about drums and they look at all these crazy things drummers do, and the reality is drums is actually much simpler when you break it down. It's a very binary instrument. So if you think about the word binary, that means two things. Drums breaks down this way a lot. So for example, generally speaking, unless you have three hands, I don't, it's like you've got a right hand and a left hand, right, left. You've got either a single note or a double note. So in a lot of drum rudiments, in a lot of drum beats, you'll have times where you're going to play not just one note, but you're going to play two. So a single or a double. And sometimes there have been times where you'll see like a triple where you might go like, that's a little bit less common, at least in like worship music and stuff. It just depends, but you're not going to see that nearly as often as single and double strokes or notes. And then you have either accented or non-accented. So you're accented or non-accented. An accent is just a note that stands above the rest in volume. It can be intensity. With drums, I'd encourage you to think about that primarily in terms of volume to start with so that you develop control. And then if you want to break that rule later on as you're already playing with control, that's fine. There are some situations like if you're in a drum cage and you're in a large venue where it's pretty hard for you to be too loud, you might be able to get away with playing with more intensity. But if you're playing in a very small church venue, I lead worship at a church currently that, where we're at, we seat, I think at max like 300, but most of the time it's not like a big room. So if I'm playing in without a cage or without a drum enclosure, you can't go loud. You can't play overly intense. You have to try and play with as little force as necessary every time. But that is really the like you break it down. You've got right hand, left hand. You've got single or double note. You've got accented or non-accented. And the way that we accent is through stick height. The reality is there's no pitches, there's no keys to learn, other than tuning your drums, which we won't cover today, but that's another thing you'll eventually want to learn. But you don't. It's not like you have to learn 12 different keys and all of the chords and all the variations that go with that. So in a lot of ways, when you break it down, drums can be very simple. It's just once you take a simple pattern and play it up to speed, that's when it sounds more complicated than it really is once you get going. So one thing you really, really, really want to do, and this is true for every instrument, but drums, I mean, like at the top of importance is to be practicing with a metronome. It's incredibly easy as a drummer to speed up, to get excited as you're going into a drum fill. And a drum fill is, if someone's playing a tom fill going into a crash at the end of a phrase, that's an example of a drum fill. It's something you do at the end of kind of a normal beat a lot of times to accent and to kick off the next phrase or the next section. And man, when you go into one of those as a drummer, especially a young drummer, your tendency will probably be to speed up and not even realize you're doing it. That comes from personal experience. You also might slow down on a quiet song without even realizing it, when in reality, you need to push the tempo. And using a metronome will teach you what true even tempo is. It's essential. It will prepare you professionally for live worship with click tracks, like my team uses. It'll prepare you for studio work, which requires exacting precision. Every little mistake is exposed in the studio. And so it's very, very important that you do this. So if you're using a metronome, most metronomes have a feature that will let you find it by ear. So, you can use the tap feature on the metronome to tap in the beat. Tempos are calculated in beats per minute. So it's how many beats are there each minute, and that's how we calculate BPM. And most of the time they range somewhere between, maybe 60 to 140, 160, depending on how much you're subdividing and breaking it out. But that's typically about where it falls. So let's talk about the basics of rhythm, and this is going to be really important. There is going to be a little bit of music theory that, as a drummer, it's really useful to know. So you're not just playing off a feel, but you do understand what's happening. So music is divided into measures, and these typically have 4, 3, or 6 beats. This is based on time signatures. And in classical music, if you see this written on a page, this would be either 4/4, 3/4, or 6/8. Now, the first number, if you have 4/4, the first number, the 4, tells us how many beats are in the measure. So the second number tells us which note gets one beat. Now, the first one is the one that we're going to pay closer attention to. The second number, it's typically relevant only when sheet music is involved and you're trying to make sure you understand which note gets one beat. For us, when we see 4/4, we want to think 4 beats. When we see 3/4, we want to think 3 beats. When we see 6/8, we want to think 6 beats. And most of the time, you'll be able to hear that once you get more comfortable. So I'm going to play some examples on the metronome of what this looks like. So 4/4, if I pull this up here, you're going to hear the first note is accented. The first beat is accented. That's going to tell us where the downbeat is, the beginning of the measure. And there are 4 beats in each measure of 4/4 music. So it sounds like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4/4. So each of those beats is a quarter note. They each get one beat. So 4 quarter notes per measure of 4/4. And it probably feels arbitrary, like, what is a quarter note? We'll get to that. But just know 4 beats, 4 quarter notes, that's 4/4. 3/4 is very similar, but there's one less beat. So this is what this sounds like. One, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And so each of those beats are quarter notes. They each get one beat. So 3 quarter notes per measure of 3/4. Now 6/8, there's 6 beats per measure. The 8 means that a different kind of note, an eighth note, gets one beat. But for your purpose, most of the time, what that means is it's going to sound like this. It's going to have 6 notes in the measure. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then back again. So just remember, you're almost always, not always, but almost always going to be counting in groups of 4, 3, or 6 in worship music. There are some exceptions. There are things occasionally that show up like compound time signatures, but we're not going to get into that. This is going to help you. It's going to be applicable most of the time, the vast majority of the time. So real quick, when we talk about notes, I mentioned quarter notes and eighth notes, just to understand the breakdown of how this works. A whole note is 4 beats in 4/4. So you play it and it goes all the way through. Drums are a little bit different than other instruments. We'll get to that, but just it's helpful to know the general music theory of this. So whole note, 4 beats in 4/4. A half note is 2 beats in 4/4. So it's half of the measure of 4/4. So instead of a whole note being 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's done, a half note is 1, 2, done. A quarter note is 1 beat in 4/4. So it's 1/4 of the measure, or it's just 1, and then it's done. An eighth note is actually half of 1 beat in 4/4. So it's 1/8 of a measure of 4/4. That's why the name, the eighth. That means there's 8 eighth notes in one measure of 4/4. It's starting to get confusing. I get it. This is just music theory, so you hang with me. And then 16th notes, that's a quarter of a beat in 4/4, or 1/16th of a measure. So then you would have 16 16th notes in one measure of 4/4. And usually they're clipping. Usually they're moving pretty fast. There's also a unique type of rhythm that's called triplets. And this would be when you put 3 notes evenly in the space of 2. And it has kind of a sound, let me pull this up here. It sounds kind of like this. So if this would be, let me play this for you. So this would be quarter notes. Two, 3, 4. So then let's go to eighth notes. And then let's go to 16th notes. Let's see here. They're clipping, they're moving, yep. So then triplets are a little bit different. It has, you see this a lot in jazz and in blues, and shows up a lot of places. I mean, it's a very useful rhythm, but instead of 1 and 2 and 3, it's going to be 2, 3, 4. So it's putting 3 eighth notes essentially in the space where 2 would fit, and that's what makes it a triplet. Now we can have rests, we can have whole rests. These rests tell us when not to play. So a whole rest you don't play for 4 beats. A half rest you don't play for 2 beats. It lines up the same as notes. So a quarter rest, 1 beat you don't play. Eighth rest, half a beat you don't play. This is all in 4/4. 16th rest, a quarter of a beat you don't play. There's another thing when dots are added to a note, it means we add half of the note value back again. So it's just a simple formula, which is basically, let's say you have a quarter note that is 1 beat. You put a dot on it, take half of that note and add it back again. So now it's 1.5 beats. If you have a dotted quarter rest, it's going to be 1.5 beats because it was a quarter rest. You take it in half, you put the half there. If you have a dotted half note, that's 2 beats in 4/4. Put it in half, that's another beat. So 2 plus 1 is 3. Then that dotted half note is 3 beats. So drums are a little bit different because obviously we don't hit and hold notes like we would in piano. If I have a piano in front of me and I play a note, I can actually hold a note 4 beats for a whole note. I can't do that on the drums. That's not how that works. So we're typically playing quick notes that don't sustain, and in these are called ghost notes. If you're notating this in music, they're usually marked with an X, where the dot would be for the note, and they're called ghost notes. It just means for drums, we still have to count, we still have to think about rhythm, but we don't hit and hold notes. We're playing them more abruptly in time. So let's practice counting, and this is going to be very, very, very important on drums. You're going to have to master counting. So this is very important. So let's count in 4/4 together. Let's count quarter notes. Okay, so count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can play along if you want. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now, we're going to subdivide this, and subdividing means we're putting them all evenly in half, essentially. So now we're going to do eighth notes. And the way that we count this is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So the and represents eighth notes. So let me plug this in here. One and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So now just for fun, try alternating. We'll play along. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay? Now this one's probably going to be too fast at this point. We won't do this one playing together, but just so you know, like if once you get up to speed as a drummer, you'll eventually be able to do this. So now we're going to do 16th notes. So now we're even subdividing that again. And this would be, and we're going to count this 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and it's going to be 1 E and 2 E and it's just really fast. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a. Okay, that's how you count 16th notes. Now, if we were counting triplets, we would then say 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. So like this. One triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. Okay. So when we're in 4/4, 4 beats in each measure of music, quarter notes get 1 beat. 3/4, 3 beats in each measure of music, and quarter notes get 1 beat. 6/8, 6 beats per measure. The 8 means eighth notes get 1 beat, but for us, we're still going to think of it as 6 beats, essentially. So let's start getting into some useful warm-up techniques. So the key with this when we're playing, and I do not live up to this, but it's my goal when I'm practicing, is to make both hands sound identical. This is a lot easier when you get more reps, and I don't get as many reps as I used to. But you want to try and make your right hand and left hand sound the same. And when you start, they almost certainly won't. So what we want to do, let me put this back on eighth notes, so this is clear and easy to hear. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to alternate left and right, 90 degrees vertical. Okay, and I'm going to do it with a metronome. Let's do this with quarter notes. This is a little fast when you're starting out. Okay. So start with left. Now let's try it twice as fast. Okay, yeah. So you hear I'm catching the edge there. I'm trying not to do that. But that's something to watch for. If you hear a rim shot and you don't mean to do it, try and watch that. So now let's try and do the same thing, but let's do it in a neutral position. So left first. Okay. Now we're going to try something else. Now we're going to try alternating double strokes with our left and our right hand. So what this means is first we're going to do it accented. So we're going to do left, left, right, right. Okay. And once we're done with the left, for now we'll just go both vertical. But most of the time you would probably go back to to a neutral position here. But let's try this. Left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right. Okay. And there's something I want you to see too. There was one time there where I didn't take it all the way back up, and you notice I had to bring it up and then back down, and that's harder to do in time. That's a great example of not getting back to the position that I needed to be for the next stroke. And you want to be thinking about that no matter what you're doing. Sometimes that means you're going to go back to this position, but sometimes it means you're going to go here. So let's try the same thing in a neutral position. So left first. Okay. Now we're going to do something else. This is a very, very useful warm-up. And we're going to alternate accented and non-accented with the same stick. And this is harder. But if you get this, this gives you a lot of control. It gets you used to resetting quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to go loud and then soft. And then loud and then soft. And then loud and then soft. And then loud and then soft. So, and we're going to alternate hands when we do this. So left first, then right. Left, left, right, right. Left, left, right, right. Left, left, right, right. Left, left, right, right. Okay? Now we're going to do the same thing in reverse. We're going to go soft to loud. So left, left, right, right. Left, left. Oh, nope, I did it wrong. Left, nope, left, left. When you do this fast, what it'll do is it'll force you. It actually is easier faster in some ways because you're bouncing into the next hit. But in this one, you have to. It actually, what you want to do is still do that. You want to bounce, even though it's slower. So that was the mistake I made. So nope. Okay. That one will challenge you. I'm used to playing it faster, like you know. And so I actually have to think about it more when I play it slower. So there you go. Sometimes that's true. So you want to play these exercises going to from extremely quiet, gradually ramping up to the loudest you can control. So if you were playing, let's do this with eighth notes. Something like that. That's a way to develop dynamics and control of volume using stick height. Another thing, a lot of times if I'm playing on an unfamiliar kit, a lot of times I'll just use, at one hand at a time, hit every single drum and cymbal so that it trains my brain on where things are on the kit. That's a trick if I don't have a lot of time with a kit. Before I'm going to play a set, I'll do that and then do the same thing with the other stick. Same thing, but with double hits on each. So now let's look at our first drum rudiment, and we're going to do a paradiddle, and I'm going to show you how you can develop stick control by putting accents in different places within a rudiment or within a pattern. So let's look at this. So let's slow this down because this is going to take some thought for your first time. So we're going to do right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. And for now we're doing it all accented. But that's, so, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. And what happens when you play this quiet, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, you can try putting the accents in different places. So then it becomes, let's try it on the first beat. We'll accent the first beat. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Let's try it again. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Now let's try accenting beat 2. So now we're going to play right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Or we could accent beat 3. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Or we could accent beat 4. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Okay? You see how this can work where you just want to try and use these variations on patterns, and as you get comfortable with them, this is how you develop stick control. So now we're almost to the point of being able to do our first beat, but we need to talk about feet. Now I don't have drums for my feet in front of me, but essentially what you're going to do when you're playing a kick drum is you're going to raise the front of your right foot, your heel is going to be on the ground, and then you're going to use the same principles from stick control. You're just going to drop your foot, let it rebound, and reset it back up. So, just try raising the front of your foot and then dropping it down and resetting back. It'll go like that. So then you can try double tapping. So you want to try not to lift your heel up off of the floor. So now what we want to do for this beat, we're going to stomp on the floor on beats 1 and 2. So let's try this in time. 1, 2, rest, rest. 1, 2, rest, rest. 1, 2, rest, rest. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to try and learn a beat. And this is going to be very basic because we're not going to have a kit in front of us. But what you normally would do if you're right-handed, you would cross your right hand over your left. Your right hand would play the hi-hat. Your left hand would play the snare. And then your right foot would play the kick. So what we're going to do for this, my right hand, your right hand is going to play on beats 1, 2, 3, 4. The left hand is only going to play on beat 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And our right foot is only going to play on beats 1 and 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the way that we learn, we've got 3 things going on at once, and at first it's going to be like overload. But the way that we get there with this is you essentially start with one pattern until you can play it correctly. Then you add essentially put 2 elements together. So like maybe you put your right and your left hand together, but you can't get the kick yet. You can't get the foot. Or maybe you can get your right hand and your right foot, but you can't get your left hand in there. That's okay. You want to be able to do it with 2 of the pieces and keep moving the pieces around until you are able to almost do it. And then you start practicing it with all 3 pieces together. And that's the point at which you start to be able to play beats. So, for example, let's say we're going to start with our right hand, just right hand, all 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now, our left hand only on beat 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's try with both hands. Okay? 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Let's try with our right hand and our right foot. So now the right foot is playing on beats 1 and 2, and we're playing all 4 beats here. So 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's try it with left hand and right foot and get that together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's try putting it all together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And that's our first beat. Now, that's very slow, but you can use that beat. And in fact, there's a lot of songs that use that beat. The kick snare beat is usually how I'd call it. It can be really helpful as you're learning any beat. You can use this process that I showed you to learn any beat, and that's pretty cool. So at this point, if you have questions, this is the point where you can put them in chat, but we're almost done. We're going to head over to Zoom, and you can actually ask me over Zoom live. If there's something that didn't make sense, or if you want me to give a demonstration of something, I'd be happy to do that. So let's hop over to there. But before I do, just want to let you know we're going to be doing 2 more webinars this year. We're going to be doing one for electric guitar at October 18th. It's going to be an intro to probably some rhythm electric and maybe just starting to get into the basics of lead electric. And then we're going to be doing a vocal webinar. You're not going to want to miss these. They're going to be really helpful if you're wanting to start to learn these instruments, these roles. If you liked what you saw here, if you were like, okay, this gives me a start, I could see myself wanting to learn drums, I'd really encourage you to, man, check out the drum course. Buy it. It's $79. Help support us, help support me, and frankly, it'll help you go from practice to platform. And I really believe that. You can also get it through a course subscription for $9.99 a month, or a premium subscription for $10.99, or $19.99 a month. Excuse me, $19.99 a month, and that will include coaching feedback as you submit videos of yourself going through the course. So thank you so much for coming. If you want to hang out and ask questions, join me in Zoom. We're going to head over there right now. So check your email or the button below, or there should be a link in chat for you to join us over there. We'll see you there. Thanks for joining.